going to do our review on the Husqvarna 445 x-torx, the E-series. Right, we've had it for a little over a year now. We've done quite a few little jobs. Today we're going to do the maintenance on it, sharpen the chain, we'll clean up all in behind the cover where the oiler is, the chain tensioner, the clutch, some important stuff that we need to do maintenance on. We'll clean up the overall saw, and then we'll talk about its performance, and then we'll do a couple little cuts outside. It's a nice saw, it's really good, and the way to keep your saws looking good and running nice is to do the maintenance on it. So we've run this saw for about a year, and not heavy, but we got to do some maintenance before we start this fall bucking all the wood for the fireplace or for next year so it can dry out. So we're going to take off the cover, the bar, the chain. We'll look at the oiler in there. What we're going to use is the spark plug or the chainsaw wrench. Comes with your saw. Now the one thing I didn't like about the saw was the single bolt tensioning system here. I feel like it's a little weak. Sure, it's just a homeowner saw, but I don't understand all the other saws were always 2 bolts. Gives you that extra security. Don't want your saw getting loose when you're cutting. So in here we can see the saw is pretty dirty. Zoom in a bit so you can just see the mess that's in there if you don't clean it periodically. So in here, if you cut any dirt or if there's any sand or anything on the logs, it gets stuck in here even more so. So we'd come in here and we're going to have to clean it out. I think I might need to have a little stiffer brush. Alright, so on this one here we should have the sidebar tensioning system. We slide it in, loosen the chain off. Take the chain off. Careful, it should be sharp. Set that aside. Now we can take off our bar. Right. Now our bar. All bars are the same. Different qualities, of course, but what they do have in common is they have your oiler holes and then your guide bar rails in here with the groove. That's where the oil goes. And then we want to check the sides for burrs. Since I'm taking it off and doing my maintenance, this is the time I'm going to flip my blade. So this is when you see people running their blades upside down, and if you don't know why, you're like, oh, that's funny. They don't know it's upside down. But what we're trying to do here is trying to make sure that the bar rails wear even so you don't get dips on one side. Right? Taking it off, making sure that our end sprocket turns freely. Some of them have a hole here where you can grease them directly. This one doesn't, although I'm going to try and get some oil in there and take care of it. Okay, there's the bar. And here we'll come in here, scrape out some of the heavy stuff. I need to get some spray cleaner in there. Cutting in wet or sappy conditions and then the saw doesn't dry out, this stuff turns into a cake. Right? Where your oil comes out right here, so we want to make sure that that's clean when we're done. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll run the chainsaw before I put it together to make sure the oiler is oiling adequately. And some of the nicer chainsaws, in the bottom here you'd have an oil adjustment screw. This one doesn't. Alright. And here we're pretty dirty as well. We want to make sure it's all clean. Scrape it out. Every time you sharpen your chain when you're not in the field, or you change your chain, you should minimum do this service, then flip the bar. I know sometimes when we grab our chainsaw, every time's a rush. And here's our brake. That's our braking mechanism for our saw. So a lot of us never have that engaged. You're supposed to use it when you start it. Works better when it's clean. Alright, I'll finish cleaning that and I'll bring you back. Alright, so far there you can see we got a fair bit of crud came out. I did start using an air compressor. It worked a little better. Okay, so we got it nice and clean in here around the brake. This is our tensioning bar or a screw. We want to make sure that's nice and lubricated and clean. Here's your brake up top. Looking clean. Now we're going to clean in this area on the saw. This is all sufficiently clean for what I'm going to do today. I'm going to do some cutting and then I'm going to do a little better cleaning after. Go check the air filter. Okay. Uh-oh. That should have been cleaned a little bit before. Okay, then I'll take the air filter off. I'll blow this away from the saw. Okay, it's nice and clean in behind there. I'm going to wipe that just to make sure. Air filter back on. Okay, looks pretty good. What we'll do now is we'll take her out, put it back together. It's clean, it's good. I'm not going to start it up now and do an oil test. I'm just going to make sure this is clean. What we'll do is we'll start the saw up with the chain and bar on it, and then what you do is we'll do the test where we see if the chain is throwing any oil off it to see if it's getting oiled. Never lend your chainsaw out. Every time I let somebody use my chainsaw, they end up getting my blade pinched. Starts to look pretty crappy. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to make sure our oil holes are clear, nice, free and clean. The oil comes in either this hole, and if we flip the bar, it goes into this hole. And it feeds the oil down in through the rail guide. So we want to make sure that's clean. So what I do is I get a scribe and I stick it in, go through. I'm happy, right, running my chainsaw. It's nice and clean, so obviously I neglected it a little bit, but not horribly. I don't have a big buildup there. If your chain is not getting oil, it's going to turn blue real quick, and it'll start discoloring the bar in these areas here on the edges. Now what you do is you run your finger on the edge to check for burrs. Okay, there's no burrs. This is a pretty new saw, like I said, little light use. Okay, so now Checking the end. It's good. What I'm going to do is actually drop a bit of oil down there. Okay, so I got a little oil. I don't know if you can hear that chicken. It's got something to say about my maintenance routines. Okay, so then that's just going to ensure that oil gets down in there nicely. When the saw starts up, it's all going to become displaced and run down the bar. But you're going to ensure that it gets in there down into the gear now, because it's not spinning at high RPM, and the oil will be able to work its way in there nicely. So on your bar, you have your identification marks. That this is a Husqvarna bar. It's got a part number. It's got its 18-inch bar length. It gives us the driver links. We got 72 driver links. It's .325 chain, and it's .050 driver thickness to go down in the groove. All right. So if ever we're doing maintenance, that's where we find the information for the bar and for the chain. So what we'll do now is we'll put it on, and like I said, I'm going to be putting it on upside down because I'm going to be running it like that so that it makes it wear more even. So now what we want to do is take care when we put this on that the drive link goes into the tensioning slot. Okay, once everything goes all the chain. Put the bar on upside down. We want to make sure that we put our chain in the right direction. It cuts in the forward direction, cuts on the bottom and on the top. We have to make sure that we put this in the right way. Check in to make sure that all the drivers go in nice and loose. Make sure that they're in good condition. Sometimes if you throw a chain or when you're changing it, you get a burr on one of the drive links. It could be snug in there. Could end up giving you some trouble. Okay, make sure the chain is on. Bar completely. Line it up. Okay, it's on. I like that. Okay, now what we'll do is we'll get our cover. Make sure that we line up our tensioning hole on the saw blade. Okay, now it's seating nicely. We'll get our locking nut. We'll make sure sometimes if you go out into the forest or out to cut in the grass, you can lose these. It's always good to have an extra one. All right. Snug it up a little bit. Check our tension. I'm going to lift the blade up when we tension it. Okay, we don't want to over tighten that bolt. Check our tension again. Okay, it's not bad. I'll run it for a couple minutes when I'm ready to cut, and then I'll check that tension as the chain and everything warms up. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put on a vise on my bench, and I'm going to sharpen my chainsaw blade to ensure that we get good effective cuts. Nice big chips, makes it easier on the saw, makes it easier on me. Okay, and then what I've got here is just a little vise, and I've put some jaw protectors on there, so it's not going to hurt the bar, not going to clamp it too tight. And make sure you drop your bar in through there. Don't let the chain engage on the drive screw in the bottom. Okay, then we snug it up, and it'll hold my chainsaw while I sharpen my drive links. Now, one thing I do is I check your bar. If you wiggle your chain, you can see if your bar's worn out. Sometimes if you run dry chain, it could wear it out prematurely over time. So then what we do here is we're going to come in and we're going to look at sharpening these teeth. So what we're going to do is we're going to come in and we're going to sharpen our chisel teeth. All right, they get sharpened on the top cutting edge, and then they have what they call a gullet, a round space, and then we have these rakers here, and you can see that this is a safety chain. It's got two drive or two guide bars here, rakers, that when they go around the nose of the bar, instead of being a single, they end up going and being a double, giving you less chance of having a kickback or a pull through, right? Just makes it a safety chain. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll zoom in, we'll take a close look at them. Hopefully that's in there nice and close. All right, here's my tooth. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in with a marker and I'm going to color it. As that's the tooth I'm going to start doing my sharpening on. Okay, I'll zoom out and I'll show you what tools I use after. What I'm using here is the proper size round file. It's got a guide. Here, I'll zoom out a bit there so you can see it. It's got a guide bar. It comes with a kit. It helps you go on, this one is 30-degree angle to the saw cutting edge. Right, you want to go in there and make sure that you file those teeth nice and sharp. Okay, and as we sharpen each tooth, we want to pay attention to a couple things here. All right, anyway, so that's the file. It's a 5/32 Oregon, a round file. You can use any file, but it's the Oregon guide system. All right, we'll zoom in, show you those teeth again. So we just did this one here. So what we want to do is make sure that the overall length of these teeth from the front to the back is about the same, just eyeballing. If you have one that's excessively more, it'll make it pull or cut less. Just makes it cut different. We want to make sure to do it uniformly, right? So I'll go to the next one in the same direction. I'm going to file from one side and then I'll switch over to the other side. Okay, now if the teeth are sharp, it should only take a couple. If the teeth are sharp, it'll only take a couple pushes or pulls. What we're looking for is to get a nice square cutting edge along the top. Go back, go to the next one. So I didn't like that file there, so I got a new one. Okay, this file's working much better. It's actually a 3/16. I might have grabbed the one from my other chainsaw. It didn't seem to be working. Either way, it's going to be a little sharper than it would have been, but the right size makes a big difference. Just trying to remember to keep it at 30 degrees. Okay, and there's the colored tooth. If you can see it there, saying that we've done one whole side. So I'll switch into the other side, then we'll check out the rakers. Okay, now what we're going to check is the raker depth. This is what allows our tooth to cut as deep as it wants. This is a .025 depth. So what we do is we rest it on the points there, the cutting chisels, and we check and see if it's above. Right, and all we do is we go with the file. If it's above, we take it down. Okay, and then we go to each one, checking to see if they're to depth. Okay, then what I do is I just dress the top of the raker and angle it forward a bit. Once again, all this does is ensure the depth of cut is appropriate for your saw. You know, the bigger the power, the more cc's your saw is, the bigger the depth of cut it can do. If you're working in safe conditions, as opposed to out in the field where maybe a more aggressive chain might be a little unsafe. Alright, next what you want to do is make sure you clean around your saw fill points. Right, here with Husqvarna they use a quick no tool. Right, so if you have a little brush in the field, it really makes it easy to make sure that nothing goes in your fuel tank and those filters stay clean. Right, you open it up. Only use premium fuel with an appropriate mix. Right, follow your chainsaw's owner's manual. Then if you go to different oils, they might recommend different mixing ratios, as it all depends on their combustion or their their full burn temperature for the oil, right? So we'll fill it up and then we'll go out into the wood pile and we'll give the new. Right, because of the colder weather, what we do is we run a winter chain oil, and what that is it's more viscous at a lower temperature, ensuring that the bar gets that initial oil at the beginning and fire up, which is very important to reduce bar wear. Alright, so now all our fluids have been checked and filled, our chain's been sharpened and all checked out. Next, what we're going to do is start it. Husqvarna's got a nice primer bulb, so we press that several times. I like to open up the carb a bit with the trigger to allow any fuel to kind of get in there with a little air. Okay, 6 times it says. Then we're going to choke it. Follow the starting procedures of your saw.